What's up, Brew Crew? Opie here. Welcome back to my Brew City Garden. Another thing I wanted to go over today was my watering system, my automatic irrigation system that I use. Now that my plants have become established, I'm going to move away from watering by hand and go to the automated watering system. Uh, for the automation, I use this water timer. It's an Orbit brand, model 56233. And what this gives me the option to do is have two lines hooked up to a timer, and that I can set for what time I would like the water to start, how long I want the water to run, and how often I want that water to run. So if I want one of my lines to start at 5 p.m. to run for 15 minutes, I can set that. If I want my timer to water for 5 minutes automatically every 4 hours, I can do that as well. The nice thing about this particular timer is also gives me the option right here, this little lever, for a third line, and this is just a manual, so this would be just like turning your spigot on. It's not hooked up to a timer or anything, and I can use this just for my regular hose when I want to turn it on and do hand watering, which I will still do because this doesn't cover the entire garden. Like I said, this is what I'm using now. I will be upgrading, and when I do, I'll show you what I get. But for now, I've been using this for 2 years, and it works fantastic. You put two AA batteries in the back, and that'll last all year. It probably lasts 2 years, but I change it out every spring or early summer as I start to use it. That way I don't have any mishaps while I'm out of town or something like that, and I lose a whole batch of something or other because it didn't work. But this thing has never failed me. It works fantastic. I think I paid like $40 for it, maybe something like that, depending on where you get it. But it's worth every penny. It really is. I do tend to go out of town a lot. I work a lot, so I can't be here to water all the time, especially these bucket tomatoes. These need to be watered 2 or 3 times a day because they go through it so quickly. If I'm not here or they miss a watering, I could lose an entire batch of my tomatoes, and that would be devastating. If you're in a similar situation, by all means, pick one of these things up. You won't be disappointed. If I had to make a suggestion, I would say pick up one that has more lines than you actually need, because you might find that maybe you do need that extra line here and there. And that's kind of what I've run into. So I am going to upgrade, and maybe I'll keep this around as a backup. We'll see what happens. But let me show you the drip line and irrigation system that I'm using, and kind of how it works. So a question I get a lot with the newer straw bale gardeners is, can I use a soaker hose? And yeah, absolutely, you can use a soaker hose. There are a few shortcomings though to using a soaker hose. Number one, really after about 20 feet, you start to lose the effectiveness. So, the first several feet might emit water very well, but once you start getting to the end, you'll find that it's barely emitting any water at all. So after about 20 feet, it's not really all that effective. Another reason that I don't necessarily recommend a soaker hose is because it's very area specific. Which means if you've got just one soaker hose running down the middle of your bale, it's really only going to water that little area, which is fine for the deeper rooted plants, tomatoes, peppers, and plants similar to that really set deep roots. Not a problem. The roots will just grow towards that water source, and you really won't have any issues at all. So soaker hoses, yes, they will work. I've seen people line them down one side of the bale, then back up the other, which I think would probably work a little bit better, as long as you've got the water pressure to meet the needs of that soaker hose. Another issue I've heard a lot about with soaker hoses is blowouts. So suddenly you'll get a pinhole or a crack due to the, just being out in the weather and the sun really beats this stuff up. And if you get a blowout, well, next thing you know, you got water squirting 4 feet in the air, 6 feet in the air, and nothing else is getting watered. Hopefully you catch it quickly, but if it's a couple of days, that might spell doom for your garden. So, yeah, it works, but it's definitely got some shortcomings. What I would recommend, and it's really cost effective for what you get, it may even be cheaper, really, is a drip irrigation system. Now, there's a company that I go through exclusively. It's really the only company I've ever used, but there's a reason for that. It's because the first time I used them, they were fantastic. These people just hooked me up. Their prices are excellent. Their selection is tops, and they're the type of people, if you call them up and you don't know what you're doing or what you need, all you gotta do is tell them, send them a couple of pictures or something. They'll set you up with what you need, and they're not gonna rip you off either. They're gonna get you what you need and nothing more. I don't work for this company. I'm not sponsored by them. They don't even know I'm doing this video, but I'm impressed with their service, so I'm gonna give them a shout out. The company name is dripdepot.com. The Drip Depot. Like I said, I've used these guys exclusively, and why go anywhere else? These guys are great. I mean, they're fantastic. In fact, the stuff's so cheap, I've got extra parts laying all over the place. Fittings and hose. I got another 50 feet of hose here. I got emitters, leftover emitters. So I got all this stuff, and I just got it laying around. It was cheap, so I picked up extras in case I need them. And this is the way to go. It really is the way to go. Even if you just go to Home Depot and pick up some drip irrigation system of some sort, you're going to be glad you did. It's going to work out a lot better than the soaker hose. Now, if you're somebody that's home all the time and you don't mind going out to just water your plants, hell, do that. Trust me, if I wasn't working and I wasn't traveling all the time, that's exactly what I would do. I love spending time in the garden, so I would just go out and hand water if I could get away with it. Unfortunately, I can't. So anyway, I go through Drip Depot, and I just get a roll of line and the appropriate fittings, and there's all different types. Depends on how much you want to spend. You just draw a little schematic out on a piece of paper, or like I said, just call the company and they'll hook you up. And I picked up these little drip emitters, and these actually act like a sprinkler, which is kind of cool because they just like a little mini sprinkler. And these actually have a small diaphragm in them, which will regulate the water pressure across the whole system, which is important. The first year I did this, I just put a small emitter line in there, and it didn't have any pressure regulator in it. And when I turned the hose on, everything got water, but what happened was the lines that were higher than the others got less water. So the low-lying lines, and this yard's not totally even, so that side of the garden is actually maybe 12 inches lower than this side of the garden. So that side of the garden got all the water, while this side barely got a few drips. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to do something about that. It's not going to work. So I got a hold of the company, and they've got these little sprinkler emitters with diaphragms in them that will equalize the pressure across the entire system before it allows the water to emit. And what that does is it creates an even spread across the whole system, even though the whole system's not level, if you know what I mean. So these little things are really cool, and they're really worth the few extra cents a piece that you spend on them. And like I said, I've got bags, dozens of them, more than I need. And I don't think I spent on this whole system. I redid it one time, so if you count how much I spent the first time and how much I spent to redo it, like 75 bucks. I'm not kidding. It's, for what it is, it's cheap. And if I would have done it right the first time, it would have cost me like 50 bucks. Go out and look at soaker hoses and see how much those things cost. For what you get, this is the way to go for sure. It might take a little pre-planning, but if you like Legos or puzzles or anything like that, you won't have any problems with this. That's for sure. All right, I just got my water timer set up, and I tell you what, I will fire up some of these emitters, and I need to test them for the year anyway, make sure everything's working well. And I'll just kind of show you how they work and how they emit, and you might be impressed. At least, hopefully it works. Hopefully you'll be impressed. We'll see. Come on, let's check it out. Okay, so I just turned this system on using a manual setting, and you can hear the air pushing its way through, and now the water is starting to emit. Like I said, we're just testing things out, so I can already see right here we got a problem, so I need to replace that emitter. But across the rest of the system, we can see how well that works. I'll have to replace that one. This one's kicking out a little more than I need, so I'll probably replace that one, and that's why we buy extras. That really gives you a good idea of just how well this drip system works and how well these emitters work. If you get them lined up right and clean and replace the ones that need to be replaced, and this is going to work way better than any soaker hose would. And this works the same way across the straw bales as well. All right, so I just kicked on the drip system for the straw bales. And you can hear the air working its way through. This is the first time I've run these this year, and I actually left this whole system out through the winter time, which is probably not recommended, but I did it anyway. I've only got half of it running right now. Let's open up the whole system. And these diaphragms, they wait until there's equal pressure across the whole system before it really starts to get going. Now what I plan to do later this year, because this setup is actually a little bit large for the system, I'm going to run a second line out here and water half of the garden at one time, and then the second line will kick in and water the other half. That way I'll get better, more even coverage. Now you can see here with the whole garden running at the same time, these emitters are working as intended, but I'm not getting quite the spread that I'm looking for. It's definitely better than a soaker hose, but I think with a little work, I can run another line out here. I think I can get a better spread than this. But for now, I mean, this works, and I used it this way last year. Had zero issues whatsoever. I had just a phenomenal garden. So when it comes time to setting up your watering system, give drip irrigation a try. You won't be disappointed. All right, Brew Crew. Thanks again for joining me today here in the Brew City Garden. I got a lot of work done today, and it is Father's Day, so it's time to get cleaned up and fire up the grill and hang out. Um, so I want to make sure you got a good look at the watering system that I'm using. It's not perfect, but it really works for my needs, and I'm tweaking it as I go. It's just like gardening. There's no one set way of doing it. Find something that works for you and go with it and improve on it. And that's exactly what I'm doing here at the Brew City Garden. I want to thank you again for joining me, and I want to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. It's a wonderful thing, and it's a great thing to be out here in the garden today. It's been a beautiful day. I'm so glad you joined me. Make sure you stay tuned. Do me a favor, if you like the content, hit the like button and subscribe, and share this with a friend. That would help me out a lot. All right, guys, we'll see you.